In life, you reach a point where survival isn't enough. You crave purpose, peace, and wholeness. This is your wake-up call to stop pouring into people who only drain you. It's time to refocus, to reclaim the energy you've wasted chasing validation. You weren't created to beg for belonging or settle for crumbs of attention. When you start focusing on yourself, healing begins, clarity comes, and the noise fades. Let them go. Not out of bitterness, but out of boldness. Because when you release what's not for you, you make room for what is. This moment marks your rise, your shift, your freedom. You can't heal in the same environment that broke you because the atmosphere that wounded you carries the same patterns, voices, and energies that triggered your pain in the first place. Healing requires more than time. It requires distance, change, and clarity. When you're surrounded by the same people, the same conversations, and the same energy that caused your emotional, mental, or spiritual damage, it becomes nearly impossible to grow into a new version of yourself. The mind associates spaces with experiences. If those experiences were toxic, abusive, manipulative, or neglectful, do your nervous system remains on alert? Even when you try to convince yourself you're okay, staying in a broken environment often leads to repeated cycles. You might convince yourself you changed, but the environment keeps pulling you back into old habits, reactions, and mindsets. Healing needs fresh soil. Just like a plant cannot thrive in contaminated ground, your soul cannot fully recover in a place where the roots of your pain are still tangled in the soil. Sometimes love blinds us to loyalty that is killing us slowly. We remain in places God is trying to move us from, thinking we're being strong when really we're just stuck. You don't have to hate where you were, but you do have to honor yourself enough to leave what's no longer healthy for you. The environment that broke you often doesn't recognize your growth. It keeps you boxed into an identity you're trying to shed. It sees the old version of you, the one that tolerated disrespect, overgave, stayed silent, and accepted less. But the new version of you, the one that's rising, that's healing, that's learning boundaries, doesn't belong there anymore. Growth feels uncomfortable because it challenges familiarity. But you have to choose between comfort and transformation. You can't have both. Healing is not just about escaping. It's about intentional reconstruction. When you remove yourself from the environment that hurt you, you begin to hear yourself again. You begin to reconnect with your intuition, your peace, your purpose. You're no longer absorbing the energy of chaos. You begin to recognize the triggers, the patterns, and the ways you abandon yourself just to be accepted. You learn how to choose yourself again. And most importantly, you give yourself permission to start fresh. You owe no one an explanation for choosing healing. Some people will misunderstand your silence your distance, your boundaries. But that's not your burden to carry. Protecting your peace is not arrogance. It's maturity. It's wisdom. It's survival. The right people will understand that healing sometimes requires separation. That doesn't make you disloyal. It makes you whole. You cannot build a new life while standing in the ruins of your old one. You have to step out. You have to release yourself from the environment, the people, and the roles that have been defining you. True healing comes in the quiet, in the stillness, in the moments where you're no longer reacting, but reflecting, in places where your spirit is free to rest, to breathe, to be. The same place that minimized you cannot maximize you. The same voices that criticize you cannot coach you. The same walls that confine you cannot contain who you're becoming. Letting go of the environment that broke you is not a betrayal of your past. It's a commitment to your future. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away. Not because you're bitter, but because you're finally better. Better enough to recognize that you deserve peace. You deserve to heal in spaces that honor your growth, not hinder it. You deserve to be surrounded by people who see you, support you, and speak life into your transformation. Healing requires you to trust that what's ahead is greater than what you're walking away from. And until you leave what broke you, you'll never know what holiness truly feels like. Focusing on yourself is not selfish, it's survival, especially in a world that constantly demands your attention, your energy, and your availability for everyone but you. So many people are taught to give until they have nothing left, to prioritize others' needs above their own, and to wear burnout as a badge of honor. But the truth is, pouring from an empty cup isn't noble. It's dangerous. It's not weakness to pause, to reassess, to say, I need time for me. It's wisdom. Because if you keep running on empty, the very people you're trying to serve will suffer from your silence, your exhaustion, your breakdown. A survival isn't about just existing. It's about sustaining, and you can't sustain what you don't nurture. You can't be whole for others if you're fragmented inside. Focusing on yourself is the recognition that your well-being matters, that your peace isn't optional, and that your mental, emotional, and spiritual health need just as much attention as any responsibility you carry. It's about learning how to sit with yourself long enough to identify what you feel, what you need, and what needs to shift, because sometimes the weight you're carrying isn't from the world, it's from the expectations you've placed on yourself to be everything for everyone. You were never meant to lose yourself in the process of loving others. You were never called to disappear behind someone else's story. Somewhere along the way, too many people confuse humility with self-neglect. But focusing on yourself doesn't mean you stop loving others. It means you stop abandoning yourself. You start choosing rest over running, peace over performance, and healing over hiding. It's not selfish to protect your energy, it's essential. Because the more you know yourself, the more you can give from a place of overflow rather than obligation. There's power in pausing. There's strength in saying no without guilt. There's freedom in realizing that boundaries are not barriers. They're bridges to a healthier version of you. When you focus on yourself, you begin to understand what drains you, what feeds you, and what aligns with your purpose. You stop chasing people who were never meant to stay. You stop performing for acceptance and start living from authenticity. The version of you that keeps sacrificing joy just to keep the peace is not sustainable. Eventually, the burnout becomes louder than the applause you were seeking. The world might not understand your shift. People might call you distant, cold, or different. But you don't owe anyone an apology for prioritizing your healing. Do you give up hope? You don't have to feel guilty for stepping back to breathe. This is survival. The intentional kind that makes room for transformation. Because when you start focusing on yourself, you begin to rediscover what truly matters. You remember who you were before the noise, before the pain, before the pressure, and that remembering becomes the foundation of your rebuilding. You are not here to be constantly broken just to make others comfortable. You're here to grow, to evolve, to become. And that can't happen if you're always placing yourself last. You're allowed to be your own priority. You're allowed to say, I choose me today without shame. Because when you choose you, you begin to show up better in your relationships, your dreams, your purpose, and your presence. Focusing on yourself isn't about shutting people out. It's about letting the right things in. It's about making space for clarity, for peace, and for power to rise again inside of you. The most important relationship you will ever have is the one you have with yourself. And when you begin to honor that relationship, everything around you begins to shift. You become more intentional, more whole, and more aligned. This isn't selfish, it's sacred. It's survival in its truest form. Because the healed version of you will do more good than the broken version ever could. And that's worth everything. Letting go is not losing, it's making space for growth. Because not everything that starts with you is meant to stay with you. Life is a constant evolution, and in order to rise, you must be willing to release. We often hold on to relationships, roles, and routines out of fear. Fear of change, fear of loneliness, fear of starting over. But holding on to what no longer serves you only delays your becoming. Letting go isn't about giving up. It's about giving yourself permission to heal, to breathe, and to step into something better, even if you can't see it yet. A growth requires space. You can't grow in crowded soil. You can't become who you're meant to be while clinging to who you used to be. There are people you loved who were only meant to teach you, not travel your whole journey. There are seasons that were meant to shape you, not sustain you. But when you confuse temporary with permanent, you begin to suffer unnecessarily. You stay in cycles that drain you. You shrink to fit places you've outgrown. You silence your voice to maintain peace that isn't even real. That's not loyalty. That's limitation. Letting go feels like loss at first because you're releasing what's familiar. But growth never happens in comfort. A growth is forged in surrender. It's born in the moments when you choose your future over your fear. You cannot hold on to the old and reach for the new at the same time. Something has to go. Sometimes it's a mindset. Sometimes it's a person. Sometimes it's an environment. But the act of letting go is not weakness. It's wisdom. It's recognizing that your destiny is too heavy to carry with excess baggage from your past. The truth is, not everything falling apart is a tragedy. Sometimes it's a divine reset. What you thought was rejection was really redirection. What felt like an ending was actually an invitation to begin again. But you can't receive what's next if your hands are full of what used to be. You can't heal when you're clinging to the thing that hurt you. You can't walk in freedom while dragging chains labeled familiar. Letting go is choosing to move forward without needing all the answers. It's trusting that something better is waiting, even if you don't see it yet. People will ask why you changed. They'll question your silence, your boundaries, your distance, but they won't always understand the private battles you had to fight just to find your peace again. You don't owe explanations to those who only saw your smile, but never your struggle. Letting go doesn't always come with applause or support. It comes with resistance. But don't let that stop you, because every time you let go of what limits you, you rise into what liberates you. Letting go teaches you that your worth isn't tied to what stayed. It's revealed by what you survived. It helps you unlearn the lies that told you had to settle, that you had to stay small, that you had to accept less. It opens your eyes to the truthing that peace is better than pretending, that growth is better than grasping, and that freedom is better than familiarity. You begin to reclaim your power. You start choosing yourself in ways you never have before. And that's where the transformation begins. There is no shame in releasing what was never rooted in your future. What you let go of is not a failure. It's a seed. A seed that makes room for something deeper, fuller, and more aligned with who you're becoming. So don't mourn the loss. Celebrate the space, because that space is where new vision, new strength, and new life are born. Growth doesn't always look like gaining. Sometimes growth looks like letting go Your peace is too expensive to be sacrificed for their presence because no relationship, no connection, no history is worth the cost of your inner stability. You can't keep paying for someone else's dysfunction with your mental clarity, emotional balance, and spiritual alignment. The constant noise of pleasing others, tiptoeing around their moods, shrinking yourself just to make them comfortable, it all adds up. And while they may feel fine, you're the one walking away exhausted, anxious, second-guessing yourself every step of the way. That's not love. That's bondage dressed in loyalty, and your peace is too precious to keep laying on the altar of someone else's comfort. There comes a moment when you realize that chaos is a choice. If their presence disturbs your spirit, if being around them costs your confidence, your sleep, your joy, then you have to ask, what exactly are you preserving? Is it the relationship, the image, the illusion of belonging? Because peace doesn't scream. Peace doesn't compete. Peace doesn't manipulate or guilt trip. Peace stands still, rooted in truth. When someone's presence brings more confusion than clarity, more pressure than partnership, you are allowed, no, a call to protect yourself. Preserving your peace isn't a betrayal to them. It's a commitment to you. It means recognizing that your emotional safety matters, that you don't have to keep showing up in spaces that don't see you or support you. It means finally understanding that access to you is a privilege, not a right. And just because someone has a place in your past doesn't mean they deserve a seat in your present. History alone doesn't qualify them to continue disrupting your peace. Sometimes the people who are closest to you are the ones who cost you the most. They know your vulnerabilities, your soft spots, your triggers, and yet they move recklessly. They play with your loyalty, assuming you'll always stay because you always have. But when you start choosing your peace, you start drawing lines that protect your purpose. You stop explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. Do you stop dancing for approval and start walking in alignment? And yes, it might make you look cold, distant, or different. But different is necessary when you've been losing yourself trying to stay the same. Your peace is not selfish. It is sacred. It's the foundation of your clarity, your creativity, your calling. And anything or anyone that constantly disrupts, it is too expensive to keep around. Because peace allows you to hear God, to hear yourself, to be still and grounded in your values. Without peace, you're constantly reacting, constantly spinning, constantly drained. That's not living, that's surviving. And you were not created just to survive. You were created to thrive, to grow, to flourish in environments that water you, not drain you. Walking away doesn't mean you hate them. It means you love yourself enough to stop negotiating with chaos. It means you finally come to terms with the truth that not everyone is meant to walk with you into your next season. Some are lessons, some are temporary blessings, some are detours that revealed your direction, but none are worth your sanity, your sense of worth, or your spiritual grounding. Your peace isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. You can love them and still leave. You can forgive them and still protect your space. You can honor what was and still refuse to carry what no longer serves you. At some point, you have to stop asking who will be hurt if you leave and start asking who you're hurting by staying. Because peace isn't found in their approval. It's found in your decision to finally prioritize the calm over the chaos, the healing over the habit, the stillness over the storm. And when you do, you'll find that the life you've been searching for begins, not when they come closer, but when you finally let go. Sometimes the greatest closure is no response, because silence speaks what words cannot. It is the decision to no longer argue with what already proved itself unworthy of your energy. In a world that glorifies explanations and demands validation, choosing not to respond is a powerful form of self-respect. Not everything deserves a reply. Not everyone deserves access to your peace. And not every wound is meant to be discussed with the one who caused it. Closure doesn't always come wrapped in apologies or deep conversations. Sometimes it comes quietly, in the moment you decide to stop participating in your own pain. When you give no response, you're not being passive, you're being powerful. You're not giving them the satisfaction of your confusion, your hurt, or your anger. You're taking your power back. Because some people don't want clarity. They want control. They don't want truth. They want to keep you tangled in their version of it. The more you explain, the more they twist. The more you express, the more they invalidate. So you reach a point where you understand that silence is not weakness. It's wisdom. It's knowing that your peace is more important than their permission to move on. We're conditioned to think closure must be a conversation, a final meeting, a chance to say everything we've held in. But real closure comes from within. It's not what they say. It's what you decide. When you stop waiting for them to fix it, acknowledge it, or understand it, you set yourself free. You accept the apology that never came, the explanation that never made sense, the reality that never matched the words. You stop needing them to make it right, and you start making yourself whole. No response is clarity. It is choosing not to feed the chaos. It is the refusal to let your healing be delayed by someone else's denial. It's realizing that your energy is sacred and you no longer owe anyone a front row seat to your process. Not everyone deserves to hear how they hurt you. Not everyone is safe enough to hold your vulnerability. Silence becomes your shield. It protects your growth from the voices that once buried it. You don't have to prove your side of the story. You don't have to keep defending a version of yourself they've already chosen to misjudge. Their misunderstanding of your silence is not your responsibility. You've said enough, done enough, tried enough. At some point, peace looks like logging out of the argument, emotionally and spiritually. It looks like walking away without slamming the door. It looks like outgrowing the need to be right and embracing the need to be free. They may think they won because you didn't respond. They may assume you didn't care, didn't notice, didn't feel, but you felt everything and still chose healing over reaction. That is strength. That is evolution. Let them misunderstand your silence. Let them sit in the echo of their own actions. You don't need a final word to move forward. Your life becoming lighter, fuller, freer. That's your closure. The smile you wear when you stop rehearsing what you wish you said, that's your release. Sometimes you'll never know why they left, why they lied, why they changed. But you'll know you made the choice to end the cycle. You'll know that you chose peace, even when paying back for attention. Silence is not the absence of feeling, it's the presence of healing. It's the decision to speak only where your words are valued, not just heard. To give energy only where it will be respected, not just consumed. And in that silence, something powerful happens. You stop chasing closure and start building freedom. You stop trying to understand them and start rediscovering you. The no response doesn't mean you didn't care. It means you cared enough about yourself to let go without needing anything more. That's the kind of closure no one can take from you. When you stop chasing them, you start discovering you. Because the pursuit of people often comes at the cost of your own identity. You give so much of yourself trying to be chosen, accepted, or loved that you forget who you were before the need to be validated took over. You start molding yourself to fit into spaces you were never meant to belong in, slowly losing pieces of your voice. Do your piece and your worth. But the moment you stop running after those who were never meant to stay is the moment you begin the journey inward. A journey back to your true self. Chasing them made you exhausted, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually. Do you constantly wonder if you were enough, if you did something wrong, if maybe, just maybe, you could do more to make them stay? You mistook your effort for love and their inconsistency for mystery. But love shouldn't be chased, it should be mutual. And peace shouldn't come with a price tag of endless effort. When you stop chasing, you reclaim the energy that was being wasted on proving your worth. And you begin to pour that energy into understanding your value instead. There is freedom in no longer needing to be seen by those who are blind to your beauty. You start to look at yourself differently. You begin to hear your own voice above the noise of rejection. You learn to ask yourself what you want, what you need, what makes you feel alive. You remember your passions, do your dreams, your desires, not because someone else approves, but because they've always mattered. You realize that your identity was never supposed to be rooted in someone else's presence or attention. It was meant to be rooted in truth. In chasing them, you made them the standard. But when you stop, you realize the real standard is how you treat yourself. Do you choose peace or patterns? Do you choose healing or habit? Do you choose presence over performance? These are the questions that lead you back to you. You start discovering the parts of yourself you once buried just to be accepted. Your confidence, your creativity, your boundaries, your boldness. You see yourself not through their lens, but through God's eyes, and that perspective changes everything. Sometimes, the people you chase were never meant to stay. They were meant to show you what needed healing. Their absence becomes the mirror that reflects what you've been ignoring. You thought you needed them, but what you really needed was the version of yourself that no longer tolerates being unseen, unheard, or unappreciated. Do their leaving or your letting go becomes the catalyst for self-discovery. You stop asking, why didn't they stay? And start asking, why did I stay chasing what never chose me? Discovering yourself isn't always glamorous. It's lonely, it's quiet, it's uncomfortable, but it's real. It's the place where self-worth is rebuilt, to where your voice is restored, and where your soul begins to breathe again. You become whole not because someone completes you, but because you stop abandoning yourself in the name of connection. You stop settling for attention that costs you your authenticity. This journey back to you teaches you to sit with silence, to honor your own presence, and to enjoy your own company. You stop searching for someone else to make you feel alive and realize you've had that power all along. You become your own rescue. You become your own peace. You become your own answer. And when you discover yourself, you don't chase anymore. You attract, you align, you stand in who you are and let what's meant for you find you. Without force, without fear. You no longer beg for what already belongs to you by divine design. You simply become, and in becoming, you find that the love, clarity, and purpose you were looking for in them was already waiting for you in you.